Flex. Thumb down now. Check. No drip this. Wet. Tell 'em run it on. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck. But first I stretch. Tell 'em run it on. I wake up. Flex. Thumb down now. Check. No drip this. Wet. Tell 'em run it on.
Welcome to the Grit and Grind Show, where in each episode, we'll be weighing in on recent business trends across the sports, music, and gaming industry. I'll also be featuring guests that are industry experts and can share their industry perspective. I connect with Todd Fleming, VP of Global Sales at Legends, a global sports entity delivering solutions to legendary brands. Todd has a large list of accomplishments and accolades, working with several championship organizations like the Miami Heat, Dallas Cowboys, Brooklyn Nets, and many more. Shout out to our sponsors at Outfield. Outfield is an industry-leading CRM for sales and marketing teams around the world. The Outfield app helps teams optimize their sales process, gamify their productivity, and increase revenue. Download the Outfield app now and use the promo code CLOSERS for 10% off.
Hey, Todd. Welcome to Closers. Super excited to have you on the show today. Where does this show find you?
Well, look, I first and foremost, glad to be on. I know this has been a long time in the making for you and I, so glad we could finally pull this off. But you find me in my home office, which has been, really through COVID, central hub, right?
Yeah.
But the benefit that I had, which probably a lot of your listeners do, is I had the ability of working from home to begin with, and so that transitioned into work balance inside the home, and where how do you balance everything? I had maybe had a leg up on people had already been through that process, and so. But yeah, you find me in my house here in Austin, Texas, and glad to be able to do this in between some of the other phone calls that I've got today.
Absolutely, man. Well, I love Austin. I've been a vegan for 5 years, and I find some of the best vegan food in Austin. I miss South by Southwest. Hopefully, post-COVID, we can get back into some of those, in real life events. And, thank you again for being here. I think that your career is exciting, and, some of your accomplishments and accolades, the things you're working on today is really valuable for our audience. So, you've had a successful career in sports and entertainment. Just discuss your background and share a few highlights throughout your journey.
Yeah, well, it certainly will. I first though, the success I've had is really because I've had a chance to work with great people, and along the way, done pretty good, decent job of keeping my foot out of my mouth, and that's what's led to me having some of the opportunities and roles that I've had. But I'll start kind of at the beginning, and I'll try to be efficient and succinct with this. But coming out of college, I played basketball in college, real small school in Ohio, and quickly realized that 6 foot point guards don't really make it in the NBA. So I started to go the corporate route and figure out where the jobs would be. And in 99, 2000, I was part of an internet startup in Atlanta, we had the worst domain name. It was everythingbefore.com. So way too long of a domain name. But it was a really cool concept of kind of one of the first sites that I ever could remember where you had the ability to go online and purchase products from different manufacturers or, designers, that type of scenario. And I had a chance to really start to learn what sales and really what rapport meant inside a business. And I did that all on the flooring side of our company. And so I spent a lot of time in Dalton, Georgia with Mohawk Industries, Shaw Carpet, those types of individuals, of trying to sell them or convince them that they should be putting their products on a computer when the people that I were talking to didn't have a computer on their desk at that time. So that was my first foray into the world of sales and what it means to really establish a relationship with somebody that earns you the credibility to have a seat at the table. And then that quickly fell apart in the dot-com boom and fizzle. And that's when I got into sports. And the way that I found out about the role at the Cleveland Cavaliers is I got into contact with a few of my professors from the university. Okay. And and just kind of told him the story. Hey, this is what I was been doing. This is what happened. Here's kind of the responsibilities that I have, and here's what I think I'm good at. Do you know of anything? And they immediately responded, and it wasn't like they knew somebody at the Cavs. They knew the Cavs were looking.
Sure.
And so they sent me the job description, and it, to me, it was like, hey, I can combine my love of basketball and sports. I can do it in my home state. I'm originally from Ohio, obviously. And I said, you know what, I'll give this a shot. But the one thing that I did, Carlos, that I think really helped me in this process is my time in Atlanta made me realize that you have to do something to distinguish yourself in the process. I sat back and I'm like, there's got to be 1,000+ people, if not more, looking at this job. Like, on a piece of paper, how do you look different? And you don't. Like, everybody somewhat kind of looks the same on a piece of paper. And so I just didn't send my resume in. I called the company and in some way, somehow finagled my way into the vice president of sales at the time, which was a guy named Jim Van Stone, who's now either chief operating officer or at least chief revenue officer for Monumental Sports. I had a conversation with him, and I'm sure it didn't sound real appealing on his end, but I think he maybe gave me the benefit of the doubt of being kind of creative in my approach, and it earned me an interview. And in that interview, I was then able to talk about my sales experience, very limited at that time, but the trials and tribulations of what we went through to launch an internet company, and my small role in doing that. And it earned me a job with the Cavaliers. And so I took the job in late 2000 in Cleveland, and that was pre-LeBron. We did not have necessarily the best talent or record on the court, but it was a really great place to cut your teeth inside the sports and entertainment. It was really around that time when things were changing. Most organizations at that time were what I would call telemarketing or telesales centric, call room, yellow pages, see who you can get, not a lot of training. They were, that model was kind of shifting in and around that time. And so I spent 3 years in Cleveland, selling anywhere from suites all the way down to individual game type of packaging. And about 2 years into that, about a year and a half, 2 years into it, I realized that I wanted to get into the management side of it. And the driving force at that time for me on the management side was twofold. One is the old point guard in me couldn't leave. I wanted to be able to help others. The way I played point guard, I didn't score a lot. I played a lot of defense and knew how to pass the ball and ran a good floor game, right? And so to me, management was a little bit of that. Was you can directly impact and help and assist others, and that felt appealing to me. The other side of it is I wanted to, the strategy and tactics and products and packaging and things that went on inside of these organizations. I wanted to have a seat at the table of A, understanding what went into that, but B, then bringing some of my thoughts and opinions to the table. And fortunately, I'd gotten contacted by the Miami Heat and for their director of inside sales position, which again was hiring entry level, kind of fresh out of college or people wanting to break into the sports industry type of individuals. And so I was interviewing for that job, and they offered it to me, and I took it. That move from Cleveland to Miami was really appealing. Wow. And,
absolutely.
But I was entering an organization who at the time was coming off, they were great during the Tim Hardaway, Alonzo years. Alonzo had left. They'd kind of, I don't want to say gone downhill, but they'd had a losing record over the last, 3 or 4 previous seasons before I showed up there. But the year I showed up, and we'll get into kind of career highlights, I know that's a topic that you want to talk about, but, I had just left LeBron. So, had been around LeBron's kind of, first couple games and, half of his first season. And I go into Miami, who had drafted Dwayne Wade, but nobody knew who Dwayne Wade was, right? I mean, they knew that he had just been this star that had taken Marquette to the Final Four. But nobody knew how that would translate to the NBA. The other thing that was kind of working against us was Pat Riley had just stepped down as the coach. And Stan Gundy became the head coach. So kind of entering a new phase for the Miami Heat. But I saw it as really appealing. Look, certainly living in that city was great. And that certainly is things that people should think about as they're making decisions on their career. But for me, it was an opportunity to manage people. And so I went down to Miami and quickly started to build out that staff. There was 24 people that I had a chance to hire and work with that came from all over the country. And obviously in that marketplace, it was really kind of the first foray that I had really had into what does it mean to work in the world of international business, even though it's certainly an American city, very international in how it operates and the demographics of the city. And so piecing together the puzzles of talent that would look like the city and be able to speak the languages and speak to, the historics of the people that are in that city was a really fun process. The team started off 0-7. By the end of the year, they were great. They were 42-40 at the end of the year, right? So Wade became Wade. Lamar Odom stepped up. You had Skip Tumalu on the roster. You had Karan Butler. So you had a really good mix of guys that came together and they gelled. They just had a lot of fun playing together. And so we made it to the second round of the playoffs. Lost kind of a heartbreaking series to the Pacers, who were really good that year. But it kind of had set the baseline for, we have talent in place from a revenue standpoint, and now we have with the asset is starting to work in our favor. And you know this as well as I do, is that city, money really isn't an issue when you're the hot thing in town. So we built all the marketing plans and really had activated towards that process. Well, that summer they traded for Shaq, and
I remember that.
So you go from LeBron and not really knowing what an 18-year-old kid's going to do, and then he comes out of the gate, and obviously from game number one you could tell, hey, the LeBron could be special, to encounter somebody that an unknown quantity in Dwayne Wade that starts to become Dwayne Wade, and then you get Shaq, all right, which is the biggest name in the business at that point, and coming to a city that's already rabid and excited about the team, and it was a wildfire, and so we were in a really prime position to leverage that, and we did to the hilt. And I've told the story before. I think there were people on the staff that sometimes would work 24 hours a day, and be able to be picking up the phone and calling people back and making sales. It also became one of the hardest things to do in my career, though, because we sold out the inventory. And in a circular structure, you're not adding more seats. So once the 20,000 seats are gone, they're gone. And so essentially it became really hard because we had sold, the staff members had kind of sold themselves out of a job. And so those 24 individuals that I was really excited about helping them get started in a career, and they were making me look really good, I had to tell them in one day that they no longer had a job. And
wow,
because the whole model shifted. It was not a new business chase mode. We'd gotten it, and so now it was a servicing mode. And but I was able to make it through D-Wade and Shaq's first year. Obviously made it to Eastern Conference Finals. Wade gets hurt, and the Pistons take off and become who they make it to the finals. But during that time, I started to really think about what's next for me. And as much as it pained me to think about leaving Miami and the city and the weather and all of the things that comes with that, I knew for the things that I wanted to accomplish in my career, I needed to go find my next opportunity. And fortunately that showed itself in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and in the Meadowlands is where it all started. So with the Nets, and this was potentially on their eventual move, but they had planted their flag that they wanted to go to Brooklyn. Ratner had owned the team and had clearly stated we're going to move them to Brooklyn, and was in the process of acquiring the land. That was appealing to me, to go through a city and state relocation, even though it was 6 miles, completely different world from the Meadowlands to the mentality of Brooklyn, right? And,
100%.
And so the appeal of being part of what does it take in the world of sports to go through a city and state relocation was something that I wanted to take that challenge on. And so I went to New Jersey, and in my time in New Jersey, I spent 3 years there. We got kind of roadblocked during my time during politics to get kind of the project really off and running. During my time there, I not only saw over inside sales, I had a New Jersey-based, what we would call senior level sales staff. And then I also was fortunate that their first foray into opening an office in Manhattan, I had the chance to build it out for them. And
wow.
So it was a really, really cool process. And I just really thoroughly enjoyed my direct boss. There was a guy named Fred Mangione, who's now the senior vice president for the Jets. And he just was just a great leader and a great boss. And then, I had our president and CEO at that time was Brett Yormark. And so obviously a huge name in our industry, and just pushed every single day, was pushing that organization to not rely upon that. Hey, we're the second brand in the city. We're the second at everything. He just kind of changed the mindset of what it meant to be part of the Nets organization. And so it was just a really, really fun time. And, there's basketball over here that I've got that we set industry or organizational records for revenue during our time there.
Okay. Wow.
But at that time, which seems to be the case in anything that we do in the sports and industry world, when you're not looking is when the opportunities show themselves.
Yeah.
And I had my former boss in Cleveland with the Cavaliers was a gentleman named Chad Estes, which again is another industry giant name in the world of live entertainment, sports and entertainment. And we'd become friends. He was not only a mentor, my boss, but had developed a little bit of a friendship along the way too. And so stayed in contact. Well, he called me one day and he said, "Hey, I'm taking a job with the Dallas Cowboys. And I'd like to talk to you about what I'm doing there and a potential role." And me being a little bit not the smartest human being in the world, wasn't what I would say truly understanding what the Cowboys were doing, and kind of maybe went into the initial stages of that conversation maybe a little naive and a little narrow-minded on what Chad had going on. And fortunately for me, he stuck with the conversation several times with me, realized that it was a great opportunity for me to work with him again and be on that project. And I finally saw the light and understood what the Cowboys were going to be doing. I had actually went down there and during my interview process, Jerry walked in my interview, and I don't believe it was planned. I'm not sure Jerry was to my level of interview, right? But he steps in. He was looking for Jerry Jr., his son, who was in the interview, and he sits down and proceeds to, it becomes his meeting, and I had, however it felt like hours. It was probably like, but had really one-on-one conversation. And what it showed me, Carlos, he had me sold at the fact of he knew my name. He addressed me directly. Nobody else really mattered in the room to him. He wanted to know about me.
Yeah.
And I said, man, this is different. Whether this was planned or not planned, it didn't matter. He came in, and that's the approach that he took. He proceeded to tell me that that's how he just runs his business. And
wow.
So to me, it was the marketing persona is real. And he's arguably probably the greatest sales and marketing person that we've ever seen inside of the world of sports and entertainment. And that passion is real for him. But at the essence of it, he runs his business very hands-on and wants to know about you and how, two things. One, how can he help you, but how can you help the business?
Sure.
And to me, that just really resonated. And so I got back on the plane. When I left, I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm probably like 5% interested in this job. I out of respect to Chad and just how much I value him as a human being, I'm going down there. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to hear him out, but I'm 5%, right? to her picking me up in Newark and stopped on the turnpike on the way back and said, "We're moving to Dallas." And I said, "Yeah, I'm probably going to take this job." So I moved to Dallas, and I'll speed this up. Sorry. So I moved to Dallas, and we get down there, and obviously what is now AT&T Stadium was a little hole in the ground, and processed to what Jerry wanted to accomplish from a revenue standpoint and really a fan experiential standpoint just wasn't heard of at that time. And so through Chad's leadership, putting the strategy and the plan together to go sell the most expensive PSLs that have ever been introduced into the world of sports, and doing that in a really, what I would say, thoughtful way of how do you maximize the revenue opportunity, but allow the different segments of your database to tell you what they want, right? Definitely. So they have to, the way that we did it was in a fair way, but forced them to make a decision almost product by product, which made us smarter in future phases of the process to be able to be more efficient with the revenue generation. And then being able to ebb and flow those processes and tactics, because in the middle of our sales campaign was the economic downturn of 7, 8, and 9. And so in the middle of that, we had to take a little bit of a different approach, which I think, ironically, through the pandemic, we had a little bit of experience inside of Legends, people that had gone through this before, through that economic downturn. It's not really apples to apples, but being able to pivot and being very thoughtful in your engagements and your interactions with consumers without slowing down your campaigns was really something that was not done at that time, but it produced the best results that we could have for AT&T. And as that project was opening, or as that stadium opened, I was being recruited to come back into the NBA for the Charlotte Bobcats, which are now the Hornets. Yeah. And it was really in my first couple conversations, it was like, well, what's really going on here? They don't, the organization didn't have the best reputation, but it quickly became clear that that there was something that was going on. They were bringing in talent that I thought was talent, and they certainly did too, because they ended up hiring him. But they brought in a guy named Pete Gwelly as their chief revenue officer, and I had known Pete's name. Pete had been in the NFL for the Buffalo Bills. And kind of worked his way up to the head of sponsorship and revenue for them over the course of his tenure. It's a very highly respected, revenue generator. And so my interactions with him, because that was my direct boss in Charlotte, we just kind of clicked because we kind of had the same process of how do you engage with people, how do you build a brand. And obviously he was much more advanced at that than I was. And so I had a chance to learn from it, but we just kind of clicked. We had a little bit of the NFL mentality, and we thought, hey, this could be something that we could do together. And then it became clear that the potential sale to Michael Jordan was real, and he was interested in how does he become the sole owner of the organization. And so I made the decision to go. And it was a hard one because at this time in Dallas, the conversations about Legends were beginning. Legends had actually launched in 2008 as the food and beverage, the hospitality side of our business had already launched. So Legends existed. The division that I'm now on was being discussed. Okay. And so it was a really hard moment. Do you continue down this path with people that you know and love and care and been through some battles with and professional battles, and do you try to go build a business, or do you go take this opportunity in Charlotte to kind of have your bigger seat at the table and then obviously could you be a part of Jordan's acquisition? And so I decided to go to Charlotte with the understanding that there may be an opportunity with Legends if and when it launched or at a different stage of my career. And so I go to Charlotte, and it's unbelievable. The challenges were great. The market certainly is rabid for basketball. And so I had a chance there to continue to build out a team and start to build out the process of how do you set set that franchise up for success for years in the future. And then Jordan bought the team. And so I had a great deal of time one-on-one with his people, and kind of getting them up to speed on what ticket sales meant, what suite sales meant, and the tactics that we use, and those types of scenarios. And so, for a basketball guy, again, to be in the room with him from time to time, and obviously the people affiliated with him, a little bit of a dream come true. Well, several months into that, Legends is about to launch the revenue side. And so Chad comes a calling again, and does the sweet talking in my ear. I'd say the tug, Carlos, of the entrepreneurialship of what Legends really is the reason why I left. Now, I would tell people I wouldn't necessarily recommend leaving a job 11 months after you took it. That's you gotta be very confident that you're making the right decisions, and
absolutely.
You not to scare anybody, but you may want to, you're going to deal with a little bit of brushback, and your reputation is going to take a little bit of a hit. But I trusted Chad, certainly trusted the Steinbrenners and the Joneses, who obviously were the majority owners of Legends at that point, and just wanted to be part of something new. And so went back to Dallas, and Legends begins. We come out of the gate and get San Francisco 49ers, the Levi Stadium project.
Okay.
And we got the Rose Bowl. Those were our first two clients, and got those pretty quickly. And then the dream story begins, right? So now 11 years later, Legends is in stratospheres and divisions and verticals that I would have never even imagined existed back in 2010. But we do everything from planning, which is all of the market research, feasibility, analytical stuff in and behind projects, whether that's just traditional businesses and sports entertainment, the municipality world, college, but we also do the demand reports in that world as well. So that's kind of our linchpin of what kicks everything off in an engagement. We have the premium ticketing space. So underneath Legends Global Sales, we have everything from suite sales services down to tours and catered events. We have the sponsorship division, which again is naming rights, founding partnerships, kits, patches, and traditional sponsorship sales and valuation work that goes into that. We still have the linchpin, which is how we started, which is our hospitality division. So everything we do inside of our organization, regardless of the division, comes at it from the consumer's point of view and through hospitality. What is the consumer journey? What is the consumer experience? We have a merchandise division, which we operate as well as produce. And we just picked up Real Madrid through the pandemic that we do their e-com work for Real Madrid. And then we have a technology division. So we have proprietary technology that's being generated through Legends, very similar to what you and I were talking about before this began, which is how do you take data and mine it better, market to it better, and use it in a more efficient manner to make businesses better, our projects better, whatnot. And so we have a whole technology division. We have an attractions division, which we're not operating Disney, but think vertical towers worldwide. We create experiences in those through observation decks. So it becomes a sales opportunity, becomes a sponsorship opportunity, becomes a hospitality, food and beverage experience. And it also becomes a merchandise experience for us. And so, we're fortunate that we're an investor and part owner of the World Trade Center, OWO, and we run the One World Observatory. But we have Chicago, we had LA, we have DC, we have the Shard in London, and then we have a new partnership with a company called Illuminarium that's creating these visual immersive experiences around the U.S. and they will eventually go global. The first one's going to open in Atlanta, so I'd challenge you to check that out. It's going to be such a really cool, just completely immersive experience for people that you can be on a safari and be in your own hometown. So we have that, and then the last thing that we got is we have a project development division or project management. So that's the construction side of what we do. So we're actually not the entity that brings steel out of the ground, but we are the entity that manages the construction process on behalf of an owner or venue to ensure that it's that the project is done on time, on or under budget. But we do it in a way, our process is different because we have all of this sales acumen as well, that the project and the construction side is a vehicle to generate revenue. So everything that goes on from an onboarding or subcontracting or purchasing procurement standpoint gets flushed through the revenue side of how does it benefit the organization or the project. And so I think that's a little bit different than what you see in a traditional construction world, which is, again, on time, on budget. That's all that matters. We look at it through the pendulum of, again, the consumer journey and how is it producing revenue as a vehicle as it's coming out of the ground. So there you go. Long-winded, sorry, but I've had a pretty long and winding career. I wouldn't necessarily say it's for everybody, but it's worked for me.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you sharing. Just the entire timeline is just impressive, man. Just seeing how you've had some of these historical moments kind of, and while you're telling me this, I'm thinking about in my own mind some of the experiences that I've had either in those stadiums or, you know, experiences that by way of you have come to me, right? A couple of them is that, you know, my family lives in South Florida. So I actually went to the 2006 parade, actually went to Pistons versus Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then went to the finals that year too. So did that. I went to the last game at the New Jersey Stadium, right? So it was Prudential, right? Prudential.
No, it was Izod at that point.
Oh yeah, it was.
Izod. The Prudential was in Newark, and they flopped down there for a couple years too. So you went to the last game at Prudential before they went to Brooklyn, but they had the last moment at Izod, then they moved to Newark, and then they went over. That's
what it was. Yeah. And just thinking about all these experiences, I mean, I went to Super Bowl 50 at Levi Stadium. So thank you. You know, I've had some experiences and memories. I text you when I went to a Sting concert at AT&T Stadium for a customer event, AT&T. And I remember the hospitality, and I was like, "Yo, is this you?" And you text back, you're like, "Yeah, that's us." I'm like, So it's really cool. Look,
it's. I mean, again, legends. You know, you don't hear a lot about legends, and that's all planned. I mean, we don't do a lot of PR. We don't do a lot of marketing. We don't do a lot of comms. And we do that specifically for the fact that we're white labeled is that, you know, people trust us as an agency to represent their brand. And so we take that, you know, the responsibility of that is we don't pump our marks out there. So in our engagements, we take on your marks, we take on your logos, we have your email addresses, we wear your shirts, you know, and we're there to be brand stewards for you. And I think that's maybe one of the things that I'm the most proud about, that what we do is, you know, we do a lot of great work, but the only reason why we do great work is because people trust us to be able to lead their brand, and they trust in the fact that that we're going to represent them in the fashion that they would want to be represented. And then we've gone and knocked it out of the park every single time that we've had the ability to do that. So to me, that's a really, really special thing that we have a chance to do.
So really quick, from, you know, obviously this past year has been challenging in sports and entertainment. We're seeing, you know, different trends continue, whether it's TV ratings, you know, the fan experiences are growing into digital experiences and growing beyond. From your perspective and your seat, where do you see sports entertainment evolving over time, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. I actually I was having this conversation yesterday with a few different people. I you know, I don't want to be cliche, but the Roaring 20s, I think, are going to be back. And I do, like you said something earlier about South by Southwest, and it got me thinking about all the musical events that, you know, that we haven't had a chance to have. And so, you know, I try to put myself in the side, because I'm consumer as well. I own season ticketed places and I love to go to concerts. And so I actually think the experience of going to the venue is still going to be, it's going to be what it was pre-pandemic, and it may be even more expansive. And so what I think it's allowed people to do from a business perspective is exactly what you said. We've gotten much more smarter of digitally, how do we use that to enhance the experience? And then, but more importantly, it's a revenue generator, right? So inside the world of business is that, brands will now pay, better figures to be part of your digital platform, right? Because they know, they're in normal times, they're still going to be capturing more eyeballs that way, and they're going to hit more people. But it also now becomes, again, there's going to be a third of the people that say they're going to run back to the building. There's going to be a third that, hey, how many more needles can we get in the arm? And, are we completely past this? And you may just never get a third of the people back, and they may just go all to your digital, right? They're not going to leave you, but they're going to go, their way that they interact with you is going to be different. But to me, it's like that digital opportunity and the digital platform and where that can go, even in the world where we get back to people going to the venue. What are the technologies that are going to exist that can be monetization vehicles, but also just what's the next evolution of how does a consumer engage digitally? Absolutely.
And I think that going back to, live events and experiences, it's going to be more family focused, right? Making sure that there's experiences and opportunities for everyone to engage with either the primary brand or, sponsors, partners, those types of things. Prior to the pandemic, worked with MLB around a, virtual reality pitching scenario, right? And so they put this in 16 parks, and the lines were, longer than the game, right? And you would see that families were bringing their kids there because they wanted to see what it was like to, swing against a cutter from, Mariano Rivera, right? And so as you see people coming back into these experiences, you're going to see other things. Like I went to AT&T Stadium, as we mentioned, and they had the AR experience where you could take a photo with the team, right? Yep. And that was like, I'm not a Cowboy fan, but heck yeah, I'm going to get a picture, right?
No doubt.
So,
what it does, Carlos? Yeah, go ahead. No.
I was just saying, it's about, making sure that there's something for all ages and everyone's included, because that experience, you take it with you lifelong, right?
Well, and that's what I was going to, we're going to say the same thing. It's not only now because the age range is so wide, right? But there's more and more different types of age ranges coming into play into the event, but it also is too, these events are long, right? And I think as we get into, and again, I'm not a person that beats on millennials. I'm not. I think they do the tremendous things in the world, but it's clear that the attention span of consumers is shorter, right? Sure. And so I think when they come to your venues, there's going to need to be these moments, experiential things that go on around your venue that everybody has access to, that helps them break up the time at your venue, that then creates an experience that brings them back, right?
Absolutely.
And I just think it's, that's where we're going to. When you can get anything that you want on these instantaneously, the venues now have to do their version of what that looks like. And I think these experiential elements are the way that we can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So kind of talking about some current trends and topics, we just had the Super Bowl wrap up. I think that, we all didn't get here thinking that Brady wouldn't make a playoff run, but, one of the things that I saw, just to tie it into the experience, was that, I was watching the presentation of the food and some of the hospitalities, and obviously Legends was there, right? They were doing some great food and really kind of talking about the fan experience. So if you could just give a quick insight around that and then your thoughts on the Super Bowl and the outcome.
Yeah, I think, look, again, for us, it's, we're privileged to be able to have fans in the building for this event. And so kudos to the NFL, kudos to Hillsborough County to the city of Tampa, and then obviously the state for allowing all of that to happen. What it allowed us to do, though, is to showcase what we're really, really good at, right? Which is the art and science of a culinary experience. And so, where I was going is that we're not going to chase what I would say every single opportunity inside of hospitality. We're not. Like, we're going to be really strategic, and where we find the best experiences for us is where we have alignment with our partner, which is the client, but we have alignment that there's alignment on their expectations, there's alignment on the experience, there's alignment on expenses and costs, there's alignment across the board. So you're really going at this in a partnership approach. You're not coming at this with, hey, I'm the food and beverage provider, you're the client, here's my menu, here's your cut of it.
Yeah.
It's not just a business relationship. There's certainly that is involved, and everybody needs to make the money that they expect to make. But coming at it with a partnership approach, with open dialogue, complete transparency, a ton of communication, and doing that on a consistent basis, I think is the part of why we had success in a very difficult time to try to pull off a Super Bowl with limited fans in a pandemic. But it's why we have success across the board in any of our verticals, specifically the food and beverage approach. Now, my thoughts on the Super Bowl. Unbelievable what this guy is doing, and unbelievable the way that he's changed his body, or how he's gone about preserving his body. How strategic was he to go to an environment that had a great defense? Yeah, knew that they were going to have a great defense, knew they had a great defensive coordinator, but also knew that he had a coach that was astronomically different than his previous environment, right? And again, no, I'm not here to say Belichick's bad and Arians is good, or Arians is bad, Belichick's better. That's not for me to say. But it was really, to me, showed a lot about where maybe Tom is in his life cycle as a human being, of what matters to him. I think that there's real parallels to what happened in that game to what happens in the world of the business and the world of life. Like, you have to constantly be self-evaluating where you're at. And I think he did obviously just that, and arrived at a decision and got himself into an environment that he valued and wanted at that point in his life, and unbelievable that he was able to win it. The other thing that struck me is, if you look at everybody that scored a touchdown in that game, they were not part of that team last year. Crazy. And so, I mean, and again, Antonio Brown wasn't on the team at the beginning of the year. Yeah. Right. So, or Fournette wasn't either. He was. That's right. Yeah. And now I say all of that, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs will be right back there again next year, because I think they were banged up. I can't believe the difficulties that they went through, or injuries that they went through on the offensive line, and Mahomes playing hurt. I think that what we saw was a master class from Brady and the Buccaneers. But I also do think that we haven't seen the last of Patrick Mahomes. And it's going to be fun to watch them kind of retool, see what happens in the draft, what free agency do they get, and then if they can stay healthy, what really happens. I think the same for the Buccaneers. I think they're going to be a tough matchup even next year, because now the free agency world has seen what happened. Yeah. So maybe they're willing to take a little bit less on the open market to go play with him and have a chance to win it. And that JJ Watts get better. JJ Watts is out there now. Like there's well, with his wife playing in in the NWSL in Chicago, I don't know. He may be a Bears target pretty soon. I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of it. It was just fun to watch. But I think, to me, what I've always tried to tell people, particularly younger people in their career, is you got to constantly self-evaluate yourself. You've got to be, and it's tough because you're your worst critic at times. But if you're being really honest with yourself, it does allow you to put you in the position of what matters the most. And I think Brady did. And I think, he had the benefit of everybody kind of wanted him, whether they said they did or they didn't. Everybody would have taken him.
Absolutely.
And he kind of was in the driver's seat to pick the best possible situation. We're not always in that in the world of sports and entertainment, but you do have to constantly evaluate what matters to you. What environment do you want? What type of people do you want to be around? What type of opportunities do you really want to chase? And so you got to have those hard conversations with yourself. So to me, that was the message of watching a American football game that I took out of the game.
Yeah. Switching gears, one word description for Melo Ball. What do you think?
Intriguing.
Okay.
Intriguing, and I'll tell you why. Try not to develop a perception based upon the dad and other things that have happened inside the family. So I've tried to go into it with a little bit of an open mind, and I think you're starting to see that there's a little bit of a maturity level to him.
Yeah.
Even at a young age, because of what he has chosen to do, playing overseas and going through what his older brother went through, and then what the middle brother went through. I think he's
seasoned.
He's processed it the right way. And the talent certainly is there. I mean, he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's any question about it. And if he can stay healthy, it's probably his to lose. And so to me, it's intriguing of where can this go?
Yeah.
And they've been a really fun team to watch. I wouldn't, the consistency's probably got to continue to jive amongst all of them. But they're a really, really fun team. If you sit down and watch how they play, the ball moves. And I think people think of him as, because of what you think of when you hear Lamar Ball, you think of, boisterous, arrogant. And so you would think that Melo is more of a shooter. It's really not. He's a playmaker.
Yeah.
And so intriguing. So intriguing is to me is that he's been this season, this early, this good, this early, and intriguing for the fact of where can he take it and how does that impact that organization?
Awesome. Well, the last question I got for you is, I know last year you ran in the New York City Marathon. I'm assuming that the process to getting there and then completing that was just, overwhelming at times, but probably once you got through it, you were like, wow, I did that, an accomplishment that, many hope to achieve. Just give us a quick overview of that process and what that accomplishment means to you.
I'll get to what it meant to me, but the process of training was unlike anything that you could probably expect. And I mean that in the most positive way. It's grueling, but it also is rewarding at times too. And so, again, for, most of these races happen in the fall because you want that potential 50-degree day and
sure.
Running, right? And so for me, living in Texas, which is probably similar to you when you're in South Florida, the heat and humidity, when you have to start training in June, brutal. And so that was hard to get acclimated to and adjusted to. Trying to train as being, a working, traveling professional, of figuring out where to do your runs and when, and can you carve off enough time, around your meetings to do that. And, so the process it took a lot of diligence, and there's a lot of failures along the way. And I learned that where I live in Texas is not flat. So anybody Texas is a flat state, you're absolutely wrong. There'd be times that my elevation change on a simple for the training 7-mile run, which was like an off day run.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be anywhere between 400 to 700 foot elevation change just around my area. And, but so the rewarding part of it was, I'll tell you what was really rewarding. Austin's got a lot of cool places to run. And
sure.
So when I would be here in town, when I'd have to do my long runs, the way the training, I did the training through the Nike training app. And,
love that app.
I love it too. And it monitored your, what you were doing. If you were going too fast, if you were, doing more miles than what they were asking, they would adjust the plan every week to kind of accommodate where you were at. But what it ended up doing for me is it put all of my longer runs on a Saturday or Sunday. And so what I wanted to do, because again, I have kids, is, I didn't want I didn't want my 3-hour run to take up my entire day. Right. And so I would get up and my long run would be I'd go downtown, and there's a lake downtown. It's got a great running path, but I'd be one of the first several people in there. So you'd be running when it's dark, and you'd have your podcast or music going, and, it'd be in the dark. And so you'd probably get a mile or two before the sun started to come up. But it felt like a little bit of like that Forrest Gump moment, right? Where the sun was going up. But, to be able to watch that and have some peaceful moments to yourself as you're beating your body was a really rewarding process. I'd come home, I'd get into the ice bath, I'd jump into the shower, I'd do a little bit more of icing when I got out, but by 11 o'clock, 11:30 every day on those long runs, I had the rest of the day to kind of be with the family or go do something. And so that was fun to do. Race day, spectacular, man. I mean, couldn't have asked for a better day in New York City in November the 3rd, 2019 was 49 or 50 degrees with sun. And so for me, the rewarding part is my wife is Colombian, you know this. And so I made the decision that I was going to run in the Colombian kit. And so I had the shorts. So what I did, I dressed myself that provided motivation. So everything I had on reminded me of somebody in my house or my family, or was given to me by them. And so when I started out, when you start out in Staten Island, you're coming over the Verrazano, it's a really, really special thing. And so, I got through it. I was able, I speak a little Spanish, I speak a little Italian. And so, again, over half the race is from people from different countries.
Sure. Yeah.
I'd be running and you could have conversations with people in different languages, with just, again, in that city, in that race, to have the ability to do that was really, really fun. And I'll share something special. And so there was a tough part. I was still in Queens. There was 2 times. I was still in Queens, so I hadn't come across the bridge yet to come back into Manhattan. But so early on in the race, I had the volume. I was listening to music or podcasts the entire time. But I had it really low because I wanted to hear the city. I wanted to hear somebody next to me. But I'd hit a moment where it was like early in the race. I wasn't struggling, but it was kind of like, man, I can feel this a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like mile 10, I would say. And I could hear, Vamos Colombia, vamos, vamos, vamos.
Yeah.
I started looking around and I'm like, who's screaming? I know they're screaming at me, but like, where are they? And I was looking like eye level, and they kept going, Viva Colombia, viva, viva.
Oh yeah, you're definitely in Queens.
Yeah, and I'm in Queens, right? And so I looked up, and it was like on the second or third story of this building. It wasn't a high rise, but it was second or third story in Queens. And all on the patio, it was all Latinos, right? And and they weren't Colombian, because I think there was a Peruvian flag out there. There was a couple different ones, right? And so, but it was just that connectivity of, in that city, somebody recognizing the kid.
Yeah.
And potentially not being Colombian, but cheering on like somebody that they felt connectivity to. That got me through, Carlos. I'm going to tell you, that got me through probably about the next 10 miles.
Wow.
Right? Just that moment, because then you're looking up, you're saying thank you, that type deal. I gave him a little dance, that type deal. Kept going. The other thing that was really cool is I took my family. So my oldest couldn't come. He was at university, studying, had a couple tests the next day. So he couldn't be there. But my wife and my 2 young kids, well, not young, but my younger kids came. And what my wife did, she kind of told me, but I didn't think it was really going to work. We had lived there together too. So she knew the subway system and all of that, but she had it mapped out, like the marathon route.
Okay.
She had it all mapped out with her Metro card, like where she was going. And I would get a phone call I'd get a phone call and she'd be like, I'm at mile so-and-so. I'm on this side. I'm here, blah, blah, blah. So at 4 different moments in the race, I was able to come over and see somebody that I knew, and somebody that I loved and I cared for in their faces. And so when it got really difficult, I had those moments to think back on, and that's what got me through. So when I crossed the finish line, I teared up. It was something that I never thought I would do. Never really, I never had planned on doing it. It became a challenge. With a buddy of mine who also works at Legends as my boss, a guy named Mike Andreyko. We ran it together, and then our marketing director for Legends ran it as well. We were all in different heats and different waves, but we all ran it together, and so had that connectivity. But it was just a sense of accomplishment that just made you feel proud and made all those 100-degree, 90% humidity run days in Texas.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I appreciate you sharing that. I know that the preparation, finding yourself in that process and then achieving that, momentous milestone is huge. Like I mentioned before, I was super impressed when I went and did a Google search, and it was 9:46 for your total time, your average, mile, which is impressive, So,
what I tell people is I wanted to make the times, right? Like, so I can always, because, there is a cutoff where you can finish the race, but if you didn't make it in a certain time, you're not in the New York Times. And so I made the cutoff. So I can always tell my grandkids that I was in the New York Times.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing everything with us. It's been a pleasure connecting, and I look forward to keeping in touch. Hey, I really appreciate it, and we'll be chatting soon.
Well, Carlos, look, the honor's mine. The thank you, it needs to be said in reverse. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad that we could pull it off. And again, I'm yours for whatever you need in the future. So I'll be paying close attention to what you guys are doing, and this won't be the last time you and I are talking for sure. So thank you for
without a doubt. Hey, thanks so much, man, and be well.
Arrivederci, ciao, bello.
Cuídate.
Cuídese, ciao.
No drip, this. Tell 'em run it on.